The hijacker pressed the gun against my temple and whispered, "Pick 3 passengers to die." But what he didn't know was that my quiet seatmate wasn't just any passenger. She was Commander Zara Blackwood, and she'd been waiting for this exact moment her entire career. Before we dive in, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode is truly mind-blowing. Let's get started. I'm Jake Morrison, and 6 months ago, I was just another burned-out marketing consultant who couldn't close a deal to save his life. I thought my biggest problem was explaining to my boss why I'd lost the Henderson account. I had no idea I was about to board a flight that would change everything I thought I knew about courage, about strength, and about the stranger sitting right next to me. You see, when you're failing at life, you notice other people differently. You start wondering what makes them successful, what gives them that quiet confidence you've never had. That's exactly what I was thinking when I first saw Zara in the boarding area. She wasn't flashy or loud, wasn't wearing an expensive suit or talking loudly on her phone like the other business travelers. She just had this presence, this way of watching everything around her without seeming to watch it all. She was reading what looked like a technical manual, something with diagrams and charts. But the moment anyone walked past her seat, she'd casually flip it closed and pick up a magazine instead. Her hands caught my attention too. They weren't soft like you'd expect from someone in business. These were working hands, strong hands, with calluses that told stories I couldn't begin to guess. When we ended up in seats 12A and 12B, I figured it was just luck. Good luck, I thought, because she seemed like the kind of person who had her life figured out. The kind of person who could probably teach a guy like me a thing or two about not screwing up everything he touched. I was hoping maybe some of that confidence would rub off during our 3-hour flight to Atlanta. What I didn't know was that Zara Blackwood wasn't on that plane by accident. She wasn't just another passenger trying to get home after a business trip. She was a decorated Navy SEAL commander who'd spent 15 years training for situations most people never even imagine. And in about 20 minutes, when 3 armed men would stand up and turn our routine Tuesday afternoon flight into a nightmare, every single hour of that training was going to matter. But right then, as I settled into my seat and watched her politely decline the flight attendant's offer of a pre-flight beverage, I just saw a woman who seemed to have it all together. I had no idea I was sitting next to someone who could kill a man with her bare hands, someone who'd spent years learning how to stay calm when everyone else was falling apart, someone who always carried a service weapon even on commercial flights. All I knew was that in 10 minutes I'd be telling this composed stranger about my latest career disaster, and she'd listen with the kind of attention that made me feel like my problems actually mattered. What I couldn't have known was that she was already scanning every passenger, noting exit routes, and mentally cataloging potential threats with the automatic precision of someone trained to protect others at any cost. The flight attendant finished her safety demonstration. The engine spooled up for takeoff, and somewhere in the cabin, 3 men were checking their watches, preparing to turn a routine flight into the kind of situation that separates heroes from everyone else. I was about to discover which one I was. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude, and I found myself doing what I always did when life wasn't going my way, talking to a complete stranger about my failures. There was something about Zara that made it easy to open up. Maybe because she listened without judgment, without trying to fix everything or offer empty reassurances. "So you lost the account," she said after I'd finished explaining how I'd completely botched the Henderson presentation. Her voice was calm, measured. "What exactly went wrong?" I laughed bitterly. "Everything." I froze up during the pitch, forgot half my talking points, and basically handed them every reason to go with our competitor. "My boss is probably updating my termination paperwork right now." Zara nodded thoughtfully. Pressure does strange things to people. Some freeze, some fight, some find clarity they never knew they had. She paused, studying my face. "The question is, which one are you really?" It struck me as an odd thing to say, but before I could ask what she meant, she'd already shifted the conversation. "What do you do when you're not in conference rooms disappointing clients?" Honestly, I don't know anymore. I used to think I wanted to climb the corporate ladder, make 6 figures, buy the house with the white picket fence. Now I'm wondering if I'm even cut out for any of it. She was quiet for a moment, and I noticed her eyes weren't really focused on me anymore. They kept drifting around the cabin, taking in details that seemed meaningless to me but clearly mattered to her. The way the businessman in 8C kept checking his watch, how the woman across the aisle had her purse clutched too tightly. The fact that 3 men scattered throughout the plane had all ordered coffee but hadn't touched their cups. Government consulting, she told me when I asked about her work. I help organizations prepare for situations they hope never happen. Like what kind of situations? The kind where everything you thought you knew about yourself gets tested. Her hand moved slightly, adjusting something beneath her blazer that I couldn't quite see. The kind where ordinary people discover they're capable of extraordinary things. The plane hit what felt like severe turbulence, jerking us hard to the left. But Zara's reaction wasn't normal passenger concern. Her entire body shifted into a different mode, alert, coiled, ready. Her breathing changed, becoming controlled and deliberate. That wasn't turbulence, she said quietly, so only I could hear. And suddenly I realized this woman wasn't who she claimed to be at all. The plane's sudden altitude change wasn't turbulence at all. Within seconds, 3 men rose from different sections of the aircraft, like pieces of a deadly puzzle clicking into place. The businessman from 8C who'd been checking his watch, a quiet guy from near the back, and a third man with ice-cold eyes and an Eastern European accent who clearly ran the show. "Ladies and gentlemen," the leader announced, his voice cutting through the cabin like a blade. "My name is Dmitri, and this aircraft is now under our control. Please remain seated and follow instructions precisely." The temperature in the cabin seemed to drop 10 degrees. Passengers started crying, some praying quietly, others just staring in shock. Flight attendant Nora tried to maintain her professional composure, but I could see her hands trembling as she slowly moved toward the emergency phone. "Don't," Dmitri said without even looking at her. "We control the cockpit. We control communications. We control whether you see your families again." That's when he turned his attention to me. Not random selection. He'd been watching, studying, choosing. "You," he said, pointing directly at me. "Stand up." My legs felt like water, but somehow I managed to get to my feet. Dmitri approached with calculated steps, his weapon drawn but held low, unthreatening to everyone except me. "What's your name?" he asked. "Jake Morrison. Jake Morrison is going to help us with an experiment today." He pressed the cold metal of his pistol against my temple, and I felt my entire body start to shake. "You see, we're not interested in money or politics. We want to understand human nature under extreme pressure." The cabin was dead silent now, except for muffled sobs and the hum of the engines. "Here are the rules. Jake, you will choose 3 passengers from this flight. These 3 people will die. Everyone else lives. You have 60 seconds to decide, starting now." "I can't do that," I whispered. "Then I choose 6 instead of 3. Your decision saves lives or costs them." Throughout this nightmare, Zara remained perfectly still beside me. While other passengers pleaded or wept, she sat with controlled breathing, her eyes tracking every movement of the 3 hijackers. She caught my eye for just a moment and gave me the slightest nod. I didn't understand what it meant, but something about that tiny gesture told me she had a plan. 50 seconds, Jake." My mind raced as Dimitri's countdown continued. 40 seconds, Jake. Perhaps the elderly gentleman in 15A? Or maybe the young mother with her baby. "Please," I stammered, buying time I didn't know how to use. "There has to be another way." 30 seconds. "Choose or I choose for you." That's when Zara moved. Not dramatically, not in a way that would alert the hijackers. She simply reached into her blazer with practiced precision and slid something across the floor toward my feet. A pistol. Military issue, safety off, ready to fire. At the same moment, she accidentally knocked over her coffee cup, sending hot liquid splashing across Dimitri's shoes and pants. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," she said, standing up quickly and grabbing napkins. "I'm such a klutz when I'm nervous." Dmitri cursed in what sounded like Russian, stepping back instinctively as the hot coffee soaked through his shoes. His attention shifted to Zara for crucial seconds. 20 seconds. "Jake," he said, but his focus was split now. I looked down at the weapon at my feet, then back at Zara. She was no longer the quiet government consultant who'd listened to my career problems. Her posture had changed completely. Her movements were controlled, purposeful, like a predator measuring distance to its prey. "I can't choose," I said, my voice stronger now. "I won't choose." "Then you've chosen to watch them all die." Dmitri raised his weapon toward the nearest passenger, a teenage girl who was crying silently. That's when Zara exploded into action. Years of Navy SEAL training took over as she launched herself at the hijacker closest to the emergency exit. Her movements were surgical, precise, deadly efficient. She struck him in the throat with her elbow while simultaneously disarming him with a technique I'd only seen in movies. "Jake," she called out while wrestling the weapon away from her target. "The gun by your feet. Safety's already off. Stay behind me and follow my lead." I bent down and grabbed the pistol, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. But something about her voice, her absolute confidence, cut through my terror. "Point and shoot if you have to," she continued, now holding the hijacker in a chokehold that rendered him unconscious in seconds. "But trust me and do exactly what I say." The quiet woman from seat 12B had just revealed herself as something far more dangerous than any of us had imagined. The cabin transformed into controlled chaos as Zara moved with lethal precision from one hijacker to the next. This wasn't luck or desperation. This was 15 years of specialized military training unleashed in the confines of a commercial aircraft. Dmitri spun toward her, his weapon raised, but Zara was already 3 moves ahead. She used the narrow aisle to her advantage, making it impossible for him to get a clear shot without risking other passengers. "Jake, when I say go, create noise at the back of the plane." Yell, scream, anything to draw his attention. The second hijacker tried to flank her from behind, but Zara anticipated it perfectly. She dropped low, swept his legs, and had him disarmed before he hit the ground. Her movements were like watching a master craftsman at work. Every action deliberate, efficient, devastating. "Go," she shouted. I stumbled toward the back of the plane, yelling at the top of my lungs, waving my arms. It felt ridiculous and terrifying, but it worked. Dimitri's head turned toward me for just a second. That second was all Zara needed. She closed the distance between them faster than I thought humanly possible. Dmitri tried to bring his weapon around, but she was already inside his guard, her hand clamping down on his wrist with crushing force. I heard bones crack. "Drop it now or I break your arm," she said with deadly calm. Dmitri tried to use a nearby passenger as a human shield, grabbing an elderly man from his seat. "Back off or the old man dies. Let him go, Dmitri." Zara's voice never wavered. "You're outmatched and you know it. I have a hostage." "No," Zara said, her training evident in every word. "You have a problem." In one fluid motion, she feinted left, then struck right, hitting a pressure point that made Dimitri's grip go limp instantly. The elderly passenger stumbled away safely as Zara twisted Dimitri's arm behind his back and forced him to the ground. "Commander Zara Blackwood, United States Navy," she announced to the cabin as she secured the last hijacker with zip ties she'd somehow produced from her jacket. "The aircraft is secure." I stared at her in complete shock. "Commander, you're military?" She looked at me with that same slight smile I'd seen earlier. "I told you I was in government consulting." "Jake, I consult the government on how to neutralize threats exactly like this one." The woman who'd listened patiently to my career troubles was one of the Navy's most elite warriors. 6 months later, I stood in the Navy ceremony hall watching Commander Zara Blackwood receive her promotion to captain. The same woman who'd sat quietly beside me on Flight 447, listening to my complaints about lost accounts and career failures, was now being honored for her years of distinguished service protecting people like me. My life had changed completely since that flight. I'd quit my marketing job 2 weeks after we landed, tired of chasing promotions that felt meaningless after experiencing real stakes. Now I work for a crisis management firm, helping businesses prepare for their worst-case scenarios. Turns out, watching someone handle an actual crisis taught me more about leadership than any corporate training program ever could. After the ceremony, Zara approached me with that same composed confidence I remembered. "Jake Morrison, you clean up well in a suit. Thank you for the invitation, Captain Blackwood. Though I have to admit, I still can't believe the woman who listened to me whine about the Henderson account took down 3 armed hijackers." She laughed, the first genuinely relaxed sound I'd ever heard from her. "You want to know something? That conversation mattered more than you think. When I'm deployed, when I'm training, when I'm planning operations, I sometimes forget what normal life looks like. Talking to you reminded me exactly who I'm fighting to protect." I froze up there. "When it mattered most, I just stood there shaking. But you didn't run," she said firmly. "When I needed a distraction, you stepped up despite being terrified. When I slid you that weapon, you trusted me enough to pick it up. That's not freezing, Jake. That's courage under pressure." I thought about Dimitri's ultimatum, his demand that I choose 3 people to die. I keep thinking about what he asked me to do. How do people make choices like that? They don't, Zara said simply. Real strength isn't about making impossible choices. It's about refusing to accept that impossible choices are the only options available. Looking back now, I realize that flight taught me the most important lesson of my life. I'd spent years thinking courage meant never being afraid, never doubting yourself, never failing. But watching Zara work under pressure showed me something different. Real courage is about doing what's right when you're scared out of your mind, trusting others when everything seems hopeless, and standing up when it matters most. Sometimes the most extraordinary people are sitting right next to you, disguised as ordinary passengers just trying to get home.